Let's start with that news that we've learnt overnight, that Rishi Sunak has awarded knighthoods for donors as well as for Tory MPs. What do you think the public, you do loads of polling, what do you think the public makes of decisions like that?
I think the people are unhappy. You've identified the Tory politicians and the donor, but of course there are others who are also on the list. But I think people don't like it. There's no question about that. The problem is that you've got people who are genuine philanthropists who also give money to a political party, and that's where the line isn't differentiated, because people tend to pick up on the donor side. And if that's all they've done, then I would have concern, the public would have concern. But it's a question as to whether they've also been major philanthropists as well in one direction or another.
And that's what they're saying in this case?
Yes, I don't know what major charities he supported or work he's done himself, but that's probably the case. I certainly know in many of the other cases that's normally what has happened.
What do you make of the timing of this announcement as well? Because we don't normally get an Easter list, do we? We normally get New Year, we get the King's birthday, and we get resignation honours. Is it any of those?
I was really surprised when I heard that this set of awards had been announced, and I'm not quite sure why there's been timing here. I did find myself thinking, was this going to happen if there'd been a general election or prior to a general election campaign or something? But I don't know why.
You don't think so? It doesn't tell us anything about the timing as far as...
No, I don't think it does, but it is a surprise timing.
Well, and of course, everybody is keeping an eye all the time on an upcoming general election, when the timing might be and what it might look like.
Yes.
And I wonder what you make of your fellow polling experts who've been speaking out this week about the Tories' prospects. John Curtis has said that Labour has a 99% chance of winning a general election. And for the local elections, the psophologist Michael Thrasher has said the Tories, he expected to lose about half of their seats. Do you agree with those two?
I think I originally discussed the next general election on the sofa with Kay, excuse me, in February last year. And I said at the time that the election would be in October, November this year.
You're right.
I still think that will be the case. The analysis that John Curtis and Colin and Michael Rowlings and Thrasher have done, I concur with in broad terms. The opportunities for the Conservatives in terms of the general election, even though it will be in the autumn, I think diminish as each week go on in terms of the scale of the problem they face. Having said that, in 2017, the Conservatives managed to throw away a huge lead at the start of a general election and face real problems by the end of the election campaign. So the electorate can be volatile. Whether it will be on this occasion, I don't know. The polls show that people are not committed to different political parties, and therefore the chances of them changing is quite high. But all the indications are that the problems for the Conservatives get larger as each week goes on.
I guess we've got the locals coming up, haven't we, in about a month's time now. Obviously really important in terms of, who runs local services in areas. I wonder, how important do you think they are at a sort of national level in terms of how much does Keir Starmer need to show that he's doing well, that he's sort of on the march for Downing Street? But maybe more interestingly, how bad could it get for Rishi Sunak if this is a dire set of results?
I was interested by your use of the words more interestingly. I think it's interesting on both sides.
Yeah.
Sadly, commentators will spend all their time analysing the results in the context of the general election, whereas actually, as you've just said, we're talking about councils who provide very substantial services to the local community and have billions of pounds as their budgets in most cases. But people will be looking at it in terms of how many the Conservatives lose. But I would also advise that people should look at, are the beneficiaries the Labour Party? Is it Reform? Is it Greens? Is it Liberal Democrats? Are they residents or campaign groups? Because I do think the electorate is volatile. And come Friday, the 3rd of May, running into Saturday, I think it will be a very complex set of results, and it won't necessarily be easy to identify who the winners are, although we think fairly clearly who the losers are going to be because of the shift in the opinion polls since this last group of council seats were fought in 2021, which was when we had a vaccine bounce, and therefore the Tories were in a much stronger position.
I was going to say, the important thing is always like when they were last contested.
Yeah.
But it's right, I remember listening to a briefing you gave a couple of weeks ago, that a lot of the seats, though, are in Labour areas, right? So might it not look as good for Labour as some are predicting, given just what seats are being up in those battles?
Yes, and it's going to be a very complex set of results. They're going to come in very slowly because in many places there are actually two different sets of elections. And what we're going to be judging is how well Labour or other parties have done relative to how they did in 2021, but also how well they did in 2023 in the same seats, because many of the council wards have multiple councillors, and therefore the seats were fought last year in 2022 and 2021, and one can judge relatively which parties are improving in which directions.
And meanwhile, we've heard reports this week there's been a bit of a push by some Tory MPs for a summer election. Is that what you're hearing as well? And what's the thinking behind that? I mean, would they think they'd do better in the summer than hanging on to the autumn? Because the general feeling would be that Rishi Sunak wants the economy to show more signs of improvement and flights to take off to Rwanda.
Yeah, I think that's one of the good pieces of news that the Tory party is holding on to at the moment, is that inflation is coming down and the like. But there's all the speculation. People have always got their own theories. I wish I'd had a bet with Kay in February last year about it. I still think it'll be October, November. There are arguments for it. If the Tories do very badly in May, will there be a row, and therefore would it just, to hell with it, let's go? But I think the election will still be in October, November.
And Rishi Sunak will be the Prime Minister defending.
Yes, I think the dissenters have shown themselves to be a very small number. They've come up with almost a cacophony of different options. They can't agree amongst themselves, and therefore it's going to be a problem for them. You touched on Rwanda. Yes, Rwanda bill, big issue in terms of migration, in terms of the small boats, and they should pass both the Commons and the Lords in the first week back.
Would it actually make any difference to the polls?
I think not immediately. Virtually nothing makes an immediate difference. But psychologically, it will make a lot of difference to Tory campaigners, because they will be able to say, we've done what we were asked to. The question is whether the courts and others will then allow flights to take off. So next day, no, it's not going to make a difference to the opinion polls, but psychologically and progressively it probably will.
OK, Lord Hayward, always interesting to get your thoughts. And Rob, interesting as well to hear what Lord Hayward was saying there about these donors and MPs, or certainly a donor and 4 Tory MPs who've been given honours in this rather surprising list, given its timing. And interesting to hear what he has to say about how it could play with the public.
Yeah, I think it is a more complex picture maybe sometimes than headlines suggest when announcements like this are made. Certainly what within government they're pointing to is some of the charitable work that this donor has done in the past. Look, this is not the first time that we've been in a position discussing Conservative Party treasurers, big donors, getting knighthoods, or even going into the Lords as well. I think when you look down as well the list, that most of the other nominees on there, most of the other people given knighthoods and damehoods, are less controversial. There's people like Tracy Crouch, a very well-liked ex-Culture Secretary and Sports Minister, who's, I think, leaving Parliament at the next election. People like Harriet Baldwin, who chairs the Treasury Select Committee. And then, of course, people from outside politics like Christopher Nolan as well. But I guess Rishi Sunak, in the situation he's in right now, just needs to be so careful about how little things like this are handled. He kind of, yes, he needs to sort of keep the troops happy internally, but at the same time, he has enough headaches at the moment without allowing things like this to add to them, which is why I think the coming months and the run into the next general election, when everyone is on high alert for kind of potential scandals and scenting blood at the first possible opportunity, it's going to be a bumpy ride for him, I think.
OK, Rob, thanks very much indeed. And again, thank you to you, Lord Hayward. Thanks for coming in. Thank you.
Thanks very much.